got company.
Broadsword calling Danny Boy.
You have my sympathies.
We do not follow maps to buried treasure, and X never, ever marks the spot.
I'm glad it's you.
Well, I understand double O's have a very short life expectancy, so your mistake will be short-lived.
Would you like some refreshments?
Oh, I'm fine. Thank
Enjoy the show.
Hi there. Welcome to Sitting Through the Credits, a film review podcast covering new releases, cult classics, and everything in between. My name is Matt, and for this fifth episode, I'll be covering the 1974 film Black Christmas. Black Christmas was directed by Bob Clark from a script written by A. Roy Moore, and is focused upon a group of sorority girls who are picked off one by an unknown assailant dwelling in the attic of their sorority house.
I'm going to kill you.
Black Christmas is one of the first horror movies that would later come to be referred to as slasher films, a subgenre of horror that was most prominent between the late 1970s and mid-1980s. The director, Bob Clark, would later become most well known for his work on a less sinister Christmas classic, 1983's A Christmas Story. Black Christmas was shot in Toronto, in Ontario, Canada, on locations which included Trinity College and Hart House at the University of Toronto, and Grenadier Pond and High Park. The location used for the sorority house was 6 Clarendon Crescent, a Tudor revival-style house which was built in 1907 and which still stands today. With a tight budget, estimated to be around $620,000, almost everything shot for Black Christmas was used in the completed film. Black Christmas is not afraid to tackle some serious themes. Being released the year following the Roe v. Wade US Supreme Court decision, having the central character set on having an abortion is a bold decision.
You can't ask me to drop everything I've been working for and give up all my ambitions because your plans have changed. Be realistic.
Daring to engage with taboo subject matters, Black Christmas can definitely be considered as a feminist film, but it is not heavy-handed or condescending with its messaging, its strong characters consequently standing the test of time. Beyond its well-established cult following, Black Christmas was reported to be a favourite film of Elvis Presley, the Presley family maintaining a tradition of watching the film at Christmas time, and it has also been said to be one of Steve Martin's favourites. The central character, Jess, is played by Olivia Hussey, an actor who had already shot to stardom following her performance in 1968's Romeo and Juliet. Margot Kidder plays the outspoken Barb, 4 years before her most memorable role as Lois Lane in 1978's Superman. Keir of 2001 A Space Odyssey fame plays Jess's boyfriend Peter. One of the other significant characters is the sorority girl Phil, played by Andrea Martin, the only actor who would later return for the 2006 Black Christmas remake. Mrs. Mack, the house mother, is played by Marion Waldman, whose alcoholism and foul mouth borders on comedy, with her numerous bottles of liquor stashed around the sorority house. Lieutenant Fuller is played by the great character actor John Saxon. And finally, the incompetent Sergeant Nash is played by Doug McGrath. Black Christmas opens with a very traditional Christmas aesthetic, with a snow-covered old house illuminated by Christmas lights and the tune of Silent Night in the background. Rapidly, however, the audience finds themselves viewing the unfolding action from the killer's perspective, the viewpoint deliberately distorted by the use of a fisheye lens for these point-of-view shots. It's important to note that putting the audience in the killer's shoes was a technique lauded when it was used in John Carpenter's 1978 classic, Halloween. However, here Black Christmas was doing it 4 years earlier. These point-of-view shots were achieved by camera operator Albert J. Dunk, by the use of a shoulder-mounted camera harness. Technically unnamed but assumed to be called Billy from the content of the vulgar phone calls, the film's prowling antagonist is swiftly identified as a serious threat.
Just like having a wart removed.
Oh my God.
Referred to by the girls as the Mona, the phone calls were the unscripted and heavily improvised product of around 5 uncredited performers with their voices treated. The obscene phone calls later act as an effective conceit to keep Jess on the line, giving her and us, the audience, no choice but to listen to the horrific messages whilst the police try to establish their point of origin.
Jess, we didn't get him. Look, there wasn't enough time. You'll have to keep him on the line longer.
as well as stalking the sorority girls outside and within the house. Once he has claimed his first victim, the threat is heightened by a single camera shot. We briefly catch a glimpse of Billy and then observe his silhouette as he effortlessly and silently carries his first victim to the attic trapdoor, scaling the ladder, body in hand, entirely undetected. It's early in the film that we first hear Billy singing the 18th century nursery rhyme by Baby Bunting.
Little baby bunting, daddy's gone a-hunting, gone to fetch a rabbit skin to wrap his baby in.
This is sung to sinister effect as the killer rocks one of his victims in a rocking chair, the plastic bag used to smother her still covering her face. Rather than giving the killer an explicit backstory, elements of it can instead be pieced together from the phone calls. It is heavily implied that this was Billy and his sister Agnes's house. The collection of bric-a-brac in the attic doesn't fit in with the sorority house background, and Billy's reaction to the rocking horse and familiarity with the layout of the building suggests prior knowledge before his break-in. It's insinuated that Billy's criminal activity has already begun before the start of the film, a rape already being reported in the town and a 13-year-old child later found murdered in the park. Though these could be isolated incidents with no connection to Billy's actions, they contribute to the disturbing atmosphere of the story, which contrasts with the festive holiday in which it is set.
I really don't think you should provoke somebody like that, Barb.
Bob Clark consciously sought to populate his film with intelligent, well-written characters. As the first victim's father is very conscious of the morals of the girls in the sorority house and their potential impact upon his daughter, he is not willing to accept that she could simply be away with a boyfriend. Similarly, her boyfriend Chris also takes the disappearance seriously and immediately heads to the police to ensure that they are dealing with the situation with the urgency it deserves. It's good to watch a horror movie where the local community rallies together to search for two of its missing residents. Although the effectiveness of a search party of armed vigilantes is debatable, particularly as one police officer is shot in the backside for trespassing in the process. Although it's definitely a humorous scene when Barb gives the exchange for the sorority house as fellatio, a detail not picked up by the naive Sergeant Nash.
I know. Something dirty, ain't it?
The knock-on effect of this is that the police have to show up at the house, and the timing of this means that Lieutenant Fuller runs into Peter and immediately becomes suspicious of him, a suspicion that clouds his judgment towards the end of the movie. Although Nash's incompetent and immediately dismissive reactions to complaints hampers the efforts of the main characters to resolve their predicament, there are enough rationally acting characters to lend the story a sense of hope. We, the audience, know what the threat is and where it is located, and we're willing the characters to sort the situation out, the story organically and believably having the characters be tantalisingly close to saving themselves. When Jess goes upstairs towards the end of the film, she knows what the threat is, but is doing so in an attempt to save her friends.
The caller is in the house.
The calls are coming from the house.
Jess!
She is a capable character, arming herself with a fire poker, gaining the upper hand when she gets the opportunity to slam the door on Billy, and it's only the fact that the front door is faulty, a fact set up earlier in the film, that allows Billy to catch up with her, aided by the architectural layout of the house, which gives him the opportunity to grab her from the staircase. Even when confronted with the person she believes to be the assailant, she is capable of defending herself physically. Sadly, the physical and mental exhaustion of the confrontation, combined with her sedation at the hands of her would-be saviours, is what leaves her defenceless for the film's devastating conclusion. For my money, Black Christmas has one of the most sinister endings in horror movie history. Spoilers ahead for the ending of this classic movie, but the knowledge that the protagonist is sedated, defenceless in bed, and the killer still in the house, two of the victims' bodies still undiscovered in the attic, and then the trapdoor is opened.
Agnes, it's me, Billy.
But instead of seeing what unfolds, it's all left to the audience's imagination, and the final phone call heard outside the house reminds us that each of these killings was followed by a phone call. All this, and a police officer is stood on guard just outside the front door. It is a chilling way to end this story, the stuff of nightmares. Though I'd already seen many horror classics before getting around to watching Black Christmas, it is a horror movie which immediately left an impression on me, and is definitely a film I would score as a 10 out of 10, as well as being one of my favourite Christmas films. As with many early horror classics, an attempt has been made to turn Black Christmas into a franchise, with a remake in 2006 and the infamous 2019 film, which barely justifies any association with the original 1974 film. The dark, foreboding atmosphere of that original movie remains unmatched when it comes to Christmas horror, so I strongly recommend giving it a watch if you're yet to see it. To quote the film's great tagline,
"If this movie doesn't make your skin crawl, it's on too tight."
Hopefully you enjoyed this 5th episode of Sitting Through the Credits. I'm looking forward to bringing more film reviews to you soon. Thanks for listening.
I'm gonna hide this tape when I'm finished.
Replicants are like any other machine. They're either a benefit or a hazard.
Erasing it. It's life.
What's the boogeyman?
Any further resistance will be dealt with in the same way.
As a matter of fact, it was.
End of story.